Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Changing the Climate, a show where we talk about the changing world around us and how we can make it better. Brought to you by Climate Change Realty. All right, hello, everyone, and we are back with another episode. I am very excited to have Artem Nikulkov on the show. So, Artem, thanks so much for being here, man.
It's a pleasure, and thank you.
You're very welcome. Always a pleasure, as we see every single week. And I always love to get the show started with a little bit of background on who you are and how you got to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I have been in Colorado since 2002 and originally have moved here. My family has moved here from Kyrgyzstan and Central Asia, from the opposite side of the world. And I've always been into technology and tinkering with things. I remember being at my grandma's at an early age and having one of the radios, actually the only radio that we had, go out, and she just handed me the radio and said, go, do whatever you want with it. So I took it apart down to its last components and took out every single screw and just was sitting there in front of all of these electronic components. And that's been my journey, really, or highlighting the journey with electronics. I've always wanted to tinker, and that has not stopped.
No.
I've been operating Earth Coast Productions for the past 10 years, and we actually just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this past
Woo-hoo!
Sunday on March 14th, Pi Day.
Congrats, man. Hell yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been quite a journey between taking apart radios to having a successful company focusing on media production and live broadcasting, and I'm sure we'll dig into some exciting things there. But it's an honor to be here on the show.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you, man. I'm excited to talk about your whole journey. Obviously, you guys know I love entrepreneurship, and especially the emphasis that you've kind of taken with your company is what's piqued my interest. I just want to ask, when did you first move to the U.S.?
2002. So it's coming up on 20 years, I guess. Yeah. 20 years.
Right on, man. Well, we're happy to have you, and I love what your company is doing. So, so obviously I do my background research on the people before I meet them, and you and I had a nice conversation last week. So I guess wanted to start the podcast off by kind of asking you wanted to create this business that's rooted in environmental action and community engagement, and I'm just curious where you think this desire has come from. And so you do a lot of work with companies that are pursuing like positive change, whether it be in the environmental space or like in the social space. So I'm just interested kind of where that interest kind of began.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been something that has been my spiritual path, I would say, of discovering nature and discovering how I, as a person on this planet living in this time, and am connected to nature. And then seeing that we're living in an increasingly technologically dominated world. I mean, there's just so much technology all around us, and trying to bridge the gap and find this common space of technology meets nature and nature meets technology. And how do we use this force of technology for good and to create the world we want to all live in, and ultimately pass it on to our children and not destroy it.
Right.
And seeing how much rhetoric there is around really technology for the sake of technology. And I think it's really helpful to ask the question of, what can I do with this? What can I really create with the tools that I'm given? And we have incredible power in our pockets. We all have phones and really amazing devices all around us that allow us to go virtual at any time, host podcasts like you're doing right now, and communicate the message that really furthers the understanding of nature and our connection to it, growing our own food and restoring the vitality of the earth. And so we work with a number of different nonprofits that are focused exactly on those things. And so my mission and my company's mission is to increase and further that message and further the mission of these types of companies. And so that mission alignment is very important to what I do in the media world and in the types of projects that we take on. And it's been a really wonderful place to have creative media.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you being here on the show to get your perspective. So you mentioned a story from when you were a kid, how you always like to tinker with technology. And obviously I've seen your work and you're really good at what you do. But I'm curious, did you move straight to Boulder, Colorado? Is that where you moved straight in the US?
Yeah, we moved to the Denver area, and where I moved to from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, is Conifer, Colorado, which is just west of Denver there.
Yeah. So you've spent a lot of your life being kind of surrounded by nature, but at the same time, you've seen all this development kind of going up, and you've seen the rise of the smartphone and obviously the rise of the internet in the early 2000s. It's kind of interesting. Would you consider, I've been categorized as an ecological modernist, which is someone who thinks we can solve environmental issues through technology. And then there's obviously people on the other side of the camp who think we should stop growing and stop having technology. Would you consider yourself kind of in that camp, or kind of an independent kind of guy? I don't want to categorize you here, but I figured I would ask.
I've never heard the term of ecological modernist, but I like it. And I would wear that one with honor, because I think that we have incredible things at our disposal. And I am not in the camp of AI, like all out technology and being maybe, it just really depends on where you kind of draw that line of
Naturally
being in that technological space. But I think the fact that we have GPS, the fact that we have satellite imagery, the fact that we can track a lot of these things that we otherwise couldn't have, and on top of it, adding the automation and having all of these timers and sensors be turned on and off by the sun being in a certain spot, or amount of energy being drawn there, or the presence of water, or any of those types of sensors, it really allows for a very efficient growing of food, for example. So the things that I'm describing make for a very efficient greenhouse. And there are people who are building those types of greenhouses, and in terms of earthships being able to be very efficient in how they recycle water, and how it's really its own ecosystem. And so the more that we can start thinking about how do we create this contained ecosystem around us in a place where we live, in the place where we work, and then on the larger scale in our community. And that's really as far as it needs to go to transform the world, because you are thinking global when you're thinking about, like, how do I make my home more efficient? Because it takes all of us doing that individually.
Absolutely. And right. Individually, but also I think we're in this really strange part in history, or time in history, where we have these amazing tools that allow us to communicate with everyone around the world. But it seems like it's not that there's a lack of connectivity. It's a lack of, like, listening. You know, we can all communicate with each other, but we're all, even me, like, trying to bark out our own visions into the world. And I think if we just kind of, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast, is give everyone a chance to kind of share their story, so then everyone can see I feel like when you humanize someone, it's very hard to be like, that person's wrong, we need to destroy them. But one way or the other, I want to talk a bit about your story more. What has your experience been like? Because obviously you're very entrepreneurial, you run your own company. How did you get started doing this kind of work?
Yeah, I mean, going all the way back, I would say it started with me being interested in what does it take to launch a business. And I just got very curious with the idea of that's something that's possible. And I started researching online, and this is back when you could go and get like a stack of AOL discs at your local grocery store. And it was dial-up connections. And that was my first computer, still with floppy disk and AOL disk and all of those things. Yeah, fun stuff. And looking at what is required and what kind of business you can run. And, I was a little kid in middle school that has come to America. And I was like, I'm going to start a lawn mowing business. What does it require to start a lawn mowing business?
Badass.
And it takes printing a business card like this. Except smaller. And I was like,
it takes initiative.
It takes initiative. And so I ordered some paper to print business cards on that's a little bit thicker. I designed my first, graphics work, I guess, of the business card. And I just left a bunch of business cards in the neighborhood with like a little rock on top of the trash can. And I had some calls coming in. I was like, this is amazing. Like,
How
that's
old were
all
you?
it takes is a piece of paper, I
You're
was
like
like
11?
13 or 14. Yeah.
Nice. Whose lawnmower was it?
It was my mom's. Yeah.
Well,
My family's.
gotta have a business partner. So helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, man. So
So that was my exposure to just running and the business and being entrepreneurial in that way. And I've really been technologically minded, and from there just delved into IT work and web development and digital marketing and ultimately media production and live broadcasting.
very cool. What were you doing right before you founded Earth Coast?
I was actually fixing people's computers and doing virus removal and home IT network setup and printer, fixing people's printers and those types of things.
Cool. Very cool. So how'd you come up with the name Earth Coast, and has it changed at all since in the 10 years that you've been in business?
It has. Yeah. So it actually came to me in a dream.
Love it. Love it.
I
That's always what it
literally,
is.
that's always what it is. I literally woke up one morning and I was like, Earth Coast. I was like, this is a really interesting name. Let me see
Ding.
if the domain name is available. And it was. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, earthcoast.com is available for registration, like $8.99. Yeah, let's do this,
Sold.
And
Yeah.
so that was back in 2008, 2009.
Okay.
And then it didn't really get registered as an official LLC until 2011 on 314 Pi Day. And so I figure I got to be celebrating the official birthday of the company from the LLC registration.
and the infinite nature that your business has to grow. Sky's the limit, right? So I do want to talk about when you first got started, how it went from kind of having this dream to finding, like, how did you find your first client?
Yeah, well, first with the name as well, Earth Coast. The reason I think it really stood out to me is I was into hip hop at the time very much, and in rap and in the lyrics, there's a lot of East Coast and West Coast, and the East Coast, the Earth Coast is really beyond the coast. It's all one Earth, one planet, and we're all in this together. And for me, media really connects people in that way. It's from coast to coast across all of the continents.
Right.
And what that vision has been for me is helping to tell people's stories and helping to show what people are really about, because a lot of times written content goes only so far, especially in this day and age when people are skimming websites. And I know that I don't read websites. I at best skim them and just read a few lines that jump out at me.
Yeah.
And you have to structure your online content for that. And video is able to jump that to the front of the line and be there for people who want to listen, for people who want to watch and engage in this way. So it's a really powerful medium, and live video, it takes it a notch further. And so it's here to stay. And it's been pretty exciting consulting with organizations and businesses on how to best create strategy that incorporates media production in their business.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk. That's the next topic. We're going to talk about the importance of live broadcasting, because obviously that's a lot of work you've been doing lately. But I still am curious. When you were first getting started, were you making cold calls? Were you talking to your sphere of influence, or were you just, I don't know, going to networking events? Like, how did you get this thing rolling? Because I know some people who listen are probably thinking about starting their own ventures. They're younger. They want to be involved in this space. So what kind of advice could you give to them for just getting that first, 1, 2, 3 clients?
Yeah. I would say that for me, it was a natural progression of things, and
Sure.
in the way that I really started with like I said, the kind of the lawn mowing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in speaking with my lawn mowing customers, they would figure out that, hey, like this person can really figure out and help me with my computers and my IT stuff. And that's really what I was kind of upselling them on, if you will.
Yeah.
And so then it naturally transformed to this IT business. And then over time, it morphed from helping people with their home networks and virus removal and all of those things and being in their home to, hey, like this person owns a restaurant and they need some IT help and network switch configuration at their restaurant. So I'd help with that. And so by the time I was starting the media production, I already had a roster of business slash home clients who knew me on the computer and network side of things.
Yep.
And so it was a natural offer to be like, hey, like I do video production now. Do you need a video? I'll help you create a promo and a highlight reel. So that was kind of the natural progression at the start of it. But ultimately, it definitely required quite a bit of networking. I know I've been involved with all kinds of different groups and networking groups over the years. And before COVID times, I was very active and going to every type of meetup in Denver and going to luncheons and dinners. And so if people are considering starting a business, I would definitely grow it organically, you know, as much as it helps to, and actually as much as there's talk about running Facebook ads and doing the digital route. I think at the beginning, it really helps to build organically and, you know, get a handshake in.
Right.
COVID safe, of course.
Well, an elbow bump.
Elbow bump. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's all about finding people who know, like, and trust you. And here's this guy who's 13 years old, showing initiative, dropping his business card on my lawn, on my door. And then he mows my lawn. And then we have a nice conversation, maybe have a lemonade. And then as the years goes on, they're watching this kid. They're like, oh, he's got a lot of initiative. He's hardworking. He's really into that technology stuff. So then they like, oh no, Artem, my computer's broken. That guy Artem, you know, he did such a great job on my lawn. Maybe he'll do this. And it's all about these relationships we have with people, don't you think? When it comes to business, it's about those people who know, like, and trust you, who will then refer you to someone else, because it's about those connections that we build, like you said, organically.
It is about the connections, and that is truly the power of the referral. And I'm really happy and proud to say that in the years that I've had the business, it has been primarily referral based. And so I have done some campaigns and email campaigns for myself, and certainly help a lot of the organizations with those types of campaigns. And you just can't really beat what a powerful, true referral of a happy client recommending you to their friend or colleague does and is.
Right. And you've got plenty of those now. You've been working with some reputable organizations that obviously I'm very interested in discussing. But before we get into who you've been working with, I'd just like to ask you, why do you think that live broadcasting is such a powerful tool? Even before COVID, I think you were working on this a lot, right?
Yeah. And the way that I really narrowed in on live broadcasting, it was through sitting down and thinking about what is the next step. At the time, I had been actively in web development, had built hundreds of WordPress sites for people, and have done video production as well, creating highlight reels and promo videos, and thinking about what is the kind of perfect crossroads of video production, web development, IT knowledge, and marketing. And really the crossroads and the X marks the spot was live broadcasting. It was really coming up because it's not just video. It requires an in-depth knowledge of IT and network configurations and all of those types of things, at least to do it at the level that we're doing it on a production scale. Yeah. At this day, for people and businesses, I really encourage them not to think about the technical requirements of it, because you have it right here in your palm of your hand. And so you can go live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Every major channel out there now has live video capabilities. And the reason it's so powerful is because you can go live and be very much in the moment. And that's something that has not been possible before. And sometimes when you go live, you might have, just a handful of people, but those people are there to support you, and they're very interested in what you have to say. And that type of communication has not been available. And it was really only available to people that ran news and broadcasting studios, right? And so now we have that. Technology, and so utilizing it is just really, being a responsible organization leader and business owner, and just for anyone who's out there looking to create their own thing, engaging that way is very powerful. And that's just on the going live on social type of environment. And then the other side of the things that we do and help with is facilitating, creating online conferences, online events, webinars, and those types of functions. And with webinars and conferences, that's a whole another piece to it, where you're able to scale what would otherwise be a limited event in capacity based on the venue size and maybe only fitting 20, 30 people or even 100 people. Now you're able to open it up to this wide range of people who don't have to travel and get on a plane. They can show up at the conference from anywhere in the world, provided that timing works out. It's always challenging for our Australian folks to join a webinar in Colorado,
right.
But
yeah, I hear you.
Cool. But it's a really powerful medium, and it just really opens the door. It's a bit of a it levels the playing field for sure.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about like the behind the scenes details? You mentioned on your website, you really focus on collaborating with the organizations you're doing work with, like their existing teams, to make sure that we're getting the exact product that they want. And of course, with something like a live stream, everything kind of has to be perfectly set up right before you get started. I mean, I do lives every single week as well, just because you really can get that genuine nature and kind of put on, like, people love like a performance, and especially if it's very well articulated and put out. It's like, wow, this guy's not only doing this, but it's live. So I was just, what's it like working with, so you've done the work for the Regenerative Earth Summit 2018 and 2019, and you've been doing some work with Y on Earth, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And those are all wonderful nonprofit organizations that we work with. And the Regenerative Rising nonprofit, we support a number of other organizations that do amazing work, including Pet Sustainability Coalition, and a number of different foundations that are focused on giving out grants to students for scholarships. And we definitely work with a number of different nonprofit organizations. And I think a big reason for that is the mission alignment piece. Sure. It's just a natural focus for us to be able to support an organization that we truly believe in. And so when we know that we believe in whom we're supporting, then it's a lot easier to get into that brainstorming mindset and think about all the opportunities that might be available to create the most engaging media. And that's really what we specialize in, and the way what certainly nurtures my soul to do this type of work is to think about not about a particular event as something that can extend the reach for that brand, and also create not just the recording of the event, but to think of it and script it for the highlight reel, for the social media clips, because we come in with a full production setup, and sometimes it takes us a day just to get everything configured and dialed in. And then we have our production days of 1 or 2 or 3 days, depending on how long the conference might be. And since we're already there and we have all the equipment and the lights and the sound recording and everything that it takes to run a show like that, we want to record the interviews with people and record content that will fill up the content calendar for that organization for months to come. And so a lot of times, one event that might be a one-day event allows someone to create content for the next 6 months, sometimes even up to a year. And thinking through those things just requires a lot of pre-production on the front end, and to plan that out. And so I encourage people to think about going live in that same way. I think it's a lot of times when people think about hosting something or just doing an event or going live, that the time that you're actually on camera is the work or the production.
Yeah.
And it's not,
No.
because the majority of the time is spent in planning. So for
Okay.
a recent fundraiser that we did live broadcast for the Community College of Denver Foundation, they provide a number of scholarships for their students. They reached out to us back in October of 2020 for an event happening in March of 2021.
Cool. Oh,
And we had
sounds
spent
like
that
now.
in, yeah, that took 6 months of planning for a fundraiser that was 45 minutes long.
That's funny. Yeah, that's good though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people obviously don't own their own businesses, but if you are in this space where you own your own business, obviously you do the work. I mean, I do the same work as you, obviously not at the same level, but we're in a world where content creation is kind of everything. The only way to keep people's attention is to create these videos or do these events, because I mean, I send out letters and stuff, but we are in a world where people's attention spans are so short and everyone has all these different Netflix and Disney Plus and all these things. And to get someone's attention, you can't just make, like a 15-second commercial anymore. You actually have to be engaging every single week. And that's what's cool about, like what you said, when you have an event with all these amazing people and there's all these different speakers, you can post it on your YouTube channel. You can recycle content and keep people engaged every week. And that's kind of something that someone who's doing a lot of advertising can definitely appreciate. I'm wondering if you have like a story from an event that you ran where you were working with a team from a nonprofit where they kind of communicated their vision to you and you guys were able to really collaborate together well, and you were really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say Why on Earth certainly comes to mind. You mentioned that organization. I work very closely with Aaron Perry, who stewards and leads that organization.
They have a podcast
And
too, don't they?
they do have a podcast,
I'll have to
and
hit them up.
I've helped to launch that podcast, and that actually came
Oh, right on.
through the conversation of really what is possible in this new digital sphere. At the time, Aaron had just launched and published his book, Why on Earth, which is an incredible manual on really nature and systems thinking around how we relate to this world, and paints the picture of where we've been and where we're going. So it's always good to have that context. And helping to work with someone through the entire media campaign and entire media presence and online presence of an organization like that is something that I definitely enjoy doing, because it allows us to not only think about a particular event, but have a much more longer term plan and longer term thinking around what we do.
Definitely.
And to enable the people in the organization to create their own media as well. And that's something that I'm really inspired to do as well, is to teach people to use the tools that they have at hand, that it doesn't require a video and media production company for every single thing that you create. In fact, I certainly encourage everyone to create their own content as much as possible, and be very active on the channels that are available to them. And so teach a man to fish is certainly a motto that I live by when it comes to technology and media.
I love that. Well, you should check out some of my stuff, man. I'm pretty crazy, and I hope I try to be engaging as much as I can. This podcast is definitely one of the more chill mediums because I allow the other person to talk. Whereas with my vlogs and my videos, it's always just me like putting all my energy out there. But let's transition a little bit for a second, because we talked about the theory of eco-modernism in the beginning of this podcast. I just wanted to ask you about your kind of worldview of like ecocentrism. What does that word mean to you?
Yeah, thanks for doing the research.
We're philosophical on this show.
Yeah, ecocentrism, I think, really places ecology, and the word eco is something that comes from the root, and this is actually something that I've learned from Aaron as well, is that it comes from the Greek word oikos, and it's at the root of the word economy, ecology. And because of that, it's really a holistic way to think about what we're about. And so ecocentrism places that back. And it also really means home. And so for me, our home planet is something that we obviously very much need. We're on this planet, and I
Dependent.
respect where we live. And it's very important to have that perspective. And so, how does that apply to media and the stories that we tell is really important. And to me personally, that means really digging into the roots of folklore and looking at what inspires people from that perspective. And it really starts delving into the mythology of a place, and the mythology that might inspire an organization. Because when we're talking about mission and vision and purpose behind a particular organization, a lot of times there is a drive behind it and the principles that are leading that place, and it's connected to a much larger world view and perspective. And when it comes to being focused on the economy, ecology, and that ecocentrism, it's something that really integrates everything. And a lot of times in business, I translate that to people, planet, and profit, the triple bottom line.
Yeah. Do you think that we kind of have a society that's more, what would the word be, like homocentric? Do you think it's like a society, our society is so focused on people and we would need to kind of focus more on place? Not necessarily has to be one or the other. I'm just kind of trying to gauge your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I would say place is a very important aspect to it for sure. Having moved from another country, and now I really consider Colorado to be home, and the Front Range to be my home. I think it's really important to dig in and grow roots wherever you're at. And in that way, to integrate into the community and really build community and be in community where you exist, and build these connections like you're doing through your podcast, and the way that I've set out to do with media.
You're doing it, man.
These organizations that are doing the same, because when you don't feel rooted, when you don't feel like you have a home, that is a place that you truly belong to, and it's something that you have to really accept and say, like, I belong to this place. And when you are constantly moving and when you're constantly on the move, it just really doesn't lead to a place where you can be focused on the ecology, I would say, and the larger economy and all of those things.
Yeah. Having a broader perspective, I think, is so valuable for gaining a better understanding of how things truly work. I think I might have mentioned this in a previous episodes, but I really do, having traveled to Australia and Asia and Europe and kind of seeing the way all different people live, it's very interesting for me to truly understand, now that I've been back in the US for a few years, how deeply individualistic our system is and how we incentivize people to really, truly, like, you and I are both entrepreneurs. We have these visions where we're going to go and save the world, but we want to do it in our way. You're using your skill set with technology. I'm trying to use my skill set with voice and sales. But something I think we really do miss out on is this sense of community, which is kind of natural to human beings. Like, we used to live in these tribes of 150 people, and everyone would kind of pitch in to the system. And in our education system in the US has taught us that you're an individual. This is your GPA. This is who you are. You need to go and forge your own path. And I think it's kind of really detrimental in many, many ways. But obviously, yeah, we get very philosophical on this show. I want to ask you, how do you think we can more effectively spread information about big problems and big solutions like climate change, or this lack of social connection that we've kind of hinted at a bit throughout the show?
Yeah, absolutely. I can share that for me, and this is sharing vulnerably, one of my current growing edges is being able to ask for help. And so that is
comes
something
with the individualism.
It does. And so it's so much part of the fabric of our society that it's truly a challenge to be able to reach out and say, hey, like, this is something I could really use help on, or, I'm struggling in this area. Can you help me? And I'm learning to do that. And it is difficult. I'll tell you that much. It might not be for everyone. It is for me. And I would just encourage everyone to think about how you can involve the people around you. It's so easy, especially with the pandemic, to be siloed and then just continuing to go inwards and inwards and inwards. And then you just build this cocoon around yourself where it's really difficult to step out of it and to consider, anyone else being in it in that way, or to feel that you just don't have, the people around you to reach out and ask anything of. I would just encourage everyone to think that there's plenty of people around you that you can reach out to. And it can be people in any organization they belong to, people even at the grocery store engaging with the store clerk and being really engaging in ways and trying to brighten someone's day goes a long way. That is how you build community. And that's something that really begins to happen when you feel a part of a place, is to be sharing something and just seeking to, better the world around you in that way, and in the small ways that happen in the day-to-day activities. And so that's something that is been helping me for sure to feel connected in that way. And further, just showing up for the types of organizations that are out there. That's part of the reason that I'm so passionate in supporting the nonprofits and these types of organizations. And sometimes, we do this for truly mission alignment, and there's trades involved and all kinds of different things just to make it work, because we feel so passionate to support what someone might be bringing out into the world. And I just really encourage people to research what's out there. Look at the nonprofits, look at the groups and activities that are available, because it does take a little bit of research. It's not something that you read on the front page of anything. You're not going to find, the latest updates on the amazing nonprofits that are in the area by reading a newspaper, unfortunately. And I'm in the larger sense, I'm seeking to create more and more of that type of media and share the news of what is happening by very driven individuals who are setting out to change the world in those ways, and how our food is grown, and how we produce our energy, how we relate with each other, and how we really build the world around us, how we educate our children. And it's just incredible what's out there. It's very inspiring, and it's all in the face of very, very difficult times. And, also acknowledging how much strife and struggle there is. It's really that interesting duality, right?
Yeah, dude, I love you, man. It's just everything you just said, like, kind of explains every single reason why I wanted to talk to you on this show today. So if it's any consolation, you've helped me today by just coming on and sharing your story. So I really appreciate it. And I guess the next thing I wanted to ask you is kind of how you've seen this whole sustainability and regenerative business space evolve over the decade that you've been doing this work. Because you said we are at this kind of tipping point in time right now.
We are. And I think part of the reason is I enjoy language. I think I hated learning English, by the way. I hated learning English with a passion. Yeah. And now I've come to really enjoy understanding new words and understanding the etymology behind things. I think it's really fun to understand the history and the roots of where something comes from, because then you get to the core meaning of what actually that word is supposed to represent. And a lot of times in the cultural context, it gets lost, and that's a bit of an unfortunate thing. But when I really started doing media production in this space, the word sustainability was at the forefront and was really leading the way. And now the word regenerative
Love it.
is really right there at the front. And I think it's a really powerful word to take and run with. And I encourage all businesses, all organizations to consider, what does regenerative mean to you? What does regenerative mean to your business? How can your business be regenerative? How can your business be regenerative for the community that you're in, for the environment that you're a part of, Certainly your supply chain, how can, the things that are the input to what you consume be regenerative? And I feel like that's a quote unquote easy answer,
Yeah.
but obviously requires drive and commitment to fully implement. And there's incredible work being done in those areas. And regenerative means sustainable inherently,
Mm-hmm.
but it also implies longevity. It implies thinking 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road, 100 years down the road. And I think what businesses who, I'm very much inspired by businesses who do that. And there's amazing things out there like the B Corp certifications and those types of things that allow businesses to really be part of a community that's dedicated to that mission and vision. And to be thinking about regenerative in that way is your edge. That is what's going to give you that competitive advantage, because there might be businesses that are winning, quote unquote, today, but will they be around tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about what is going to be that regenerative practice that I can start to implement this year, this month, this week, that's going to set me apart 10 years down the road. Whether or not you're in business 10 years down the road, in a way, it doesn't matter, because when you're thinking in those ways, you're thinking on just a completely different level of how you operate. And it honestly brings a lot of peace and contentment to the work. I've been feeling that, and it's a really powerful word. So
yeah, man,
regenerative. That's your word for the day.
well, hell yeah, it is. And it's great to feel good about what you're doing. I think, again, back to the individualism problem, we force these people to find their own path, and they end up in someone else's path who's just kind of using them as a means to their own ends. When you're someone like you who has like a purpose behind what you're doing, you have like a vision. It's so amazing to get work done and realize that that's the whole idea behind regenerative, is giving back more than you take. And I do think a lot of the most successful companies really do that. But we're going to get into talking about this kind of stuff a lot more and more. I definitely would love to talk to the people from the Regenerative Earth Summit at some point. I'm sure you could have raving reviews about them. Hey.
Yeah, so that's another organization that I've helped to launch a podcast for, is the Regenerative Rising movement. And so yeah, absolutely. So Selene Diaris does incredible work, and they're actually hosting a number of Regenerative Earth summits. And so I was there kind of for the inaugural launch of that was done in collaboration with a number of other organizations. And it has since really transformed, and they've been able to take that on and bring people under this Regenerative Earth Summit movement. And it's an ongoing webinar series that's an ongoing conversation. And it's really important to have those types of questions be formed, and then people from different industries be coming under the same roof to answer kind of a similar question, but from their own perspective. So an example of that would be textiles. Like, how often do we think about how regenerative our clothing is? Mm-hmm. And how often, like for the Pet Sustainability Coalition, how often do we think about how sustainable the packaging is in which our dog food comes from? And the fact that 1/3 of all of the protein produced in the world goes to pets. You just learn some of these facts where it's really mind blowing, and it really it causes you to pause and go, wow, yeah, this is a lot. And I'm glad that there's an organization that has chosen to dive head first into the silo. And they're like, no, we're doing this. Like, we want to transform the pet food industry. We mm-hmm. want to transform the textile industry. We want to transform packaging. And I think this is where I hear from the other side of things, where people feel so at a loss of like, how do we even begin to untangle this mess that we're in? And it just feels so hopeless.
Just never give up.
And it's like, well, we have to focus on the thing that, each one of us is passionate about. And this is how it's done, is it's these like individual kind of siloed things where we start to think about like who made this cup, and and a very different question of who made this pen, and what are all the resources that go into all of these things.
Yeah. Very cool, man. I don't know if you've noticed throughout this podcast, but I can see myself in you like a lot. I'm only 23 years old. I've always been very interested in filmmaking and technology. I've been very entrepreneurial since I was a young guy. So it's been a real honor to speak with you today. And I guess my last question is kind of, what final advice do you have for a young entrepreneur that's really dedicated to creating a positive impact on the world?
Yeah, I really congratulate you on starting the podcast and running with it. And for you
It's an
personally,
honor.
just encourage you to continue with it.
100%. Every week.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Cheers, man.
Don't stop, and
Never give up.
never give up. I would just encourage everyone who is thinking of starting their own business to just do it and try it, and don't be afraid of trying those types of things. And it might not be for you. There's definitely times that I felt it would be so much easier to, get a 9 to 5, and in a lot of ways it would be, in plenty of ways it would be. It is not an easy path to be an entrepreneur, but if that's something that calls you, then try it and see if it's yours. And for those who are already on that journey, I would say just keep collaborating. That's something that certainly is coming up as a theme in the people that I'm connected with, is that I think we're all at this point, especially coming out of the pandemic, are really feeling like, wow, we just really need to build this fabric. And I personally am very inspired to be connected to someone like yourself, and more people who are certainly our age, but that age has nothing to do with it. It's honestly just the type of, I guess, inspiration and drive that's behind it. Because there's a lot of organizations that are dedicated to networking, including, business chambers. Boulder Chamber is an amazing resource. And I always feel like there is this next thing that's possible in terms of how we connect and network. And I'm, looking to what that may be.
Me too.
And I think just continuing to look at those things is really important. And, there's new things coming out like Clubhouse. I feel like that's an interesting platform for conversations to connect with. But I think for those who might not be familiar with Clubhouse, it's kind of like a podcasting platform, but it's an audio first platform. And I'm not trying to sell the platform itself, but I think the sentiment behind it is exactly right, which is people show up, and when you engage in conversation, truly asking the question, what could help you? Like, what can benefit your next step? And I think being helpful to people around you allows you to grow at a much faster pace, and also feel in community. That is part of being integrated into our social fabric. And when we get disconnected from the social fabric that we're in, it's a challenging place, and it can be very depressing.
Totally, man. Yeah, we all can relate to that over the last year. Sorry, I got one more for you. Have you ever read Principles by Ray Dalio?
I have. That is an incredible book. Probably one of the best
ever. I think it's like, you're looking for it. And
I'm looking on my bookshelf. It's probably at home, but
yeah, I think the concept of looping, where there's everything is another one of those, whether when you get broken up with, or you lose a client, or a deal falls through, or whatever. It's all about understanding that these things happen in life, and it's like a way you have to improve yourself and be ready for the same kind of situation to happen again, and have the knowledge to not make the same mistakes again. Because if deals fall out, you lose clients, you have success, how can everything is like another one of those. I just thought that was really cool to kind of throw in at the end. Artem, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure as well. And I look forward to maybe meeting you in person, sharing a cup of coffee.
It'd be an absolute honor, and I'll keep you posted on the whole trying to get everyone to network and communicate together better, because that's something I'm really working on as well. So everyone, thank you so much for listening this week. It's been an absolute pleasure. Artem, hope you have a nice weekend.
You as well. Cheers.
Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to Changing the Climate, a podcast hosted by Climate Change Realty, the most innovative real estate corporation ever conceptualized. Visit ccrboulder.com today.